Turns out, all you had to do was give Sean Murphy some rec specs. Who knew? Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Wednesday, April 9th. Your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show, Braves_Today on X. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. It's also a Victory Wednesday, right? We get to talk about Atlanta winning a baseball game, taking down the Philadelphia Phillies 7-5 last night. I don't want to spend too much time going into the play-by-play of what happened in the game, but there's a little bit of stuff we need to talk about offensively and offensively and pitching staff-wise. And then I want to have a larger conversation about Braves starting pitching, because there were some trends that I've noticed, and I don't love them, and I think we should at least talk about it. But the story of this game, obviously, is not only the offense, but specifically Sean Murphy, okay? Gets a 3-run home run in his first at-bat. Second pitch he saw, actually. He took a sinker inside and then got a sweeper in the inner third that I don't think was supposed to be on the inner third of the plate. 3-run homer. Austin Riley had gotten on via double. Jared Kelenic had walked. We're getting to Jared Kelenic, don't worry. Murphy launches the 3-run home run. He then turned around and added an RBI single in the 6th. So 2 hits, 4 RBI in his return. And we talked about Murphy being activated off the IL on Monday. And we really focused on the Drake Baldwin side of that. But the decision to activate Murphy went a little bit against what Atlanta told us. We had been told by Brian Snitker, folks like that the plan was for Murphy to catch back-to-back 9-inning games before being activated. That's not what happened, right? He went 7 innings, I think it was on Friday night, and then was at Truist Park on Saturday, was supposed to play all 9 innings on Sunday when that game got rained out. They went ahead, and once both games got rained out, they went ahead and activated him and said he'd be back on Tuesday. If you were curious, by the way, Brian Snitker, in the pregame media availability, told us that they're going to try to find a lot of opportunities to mix in Drake Baldwin, especially early as Murphy's reacclimating, but that in this series, Murphy was going to catch 2 out of the 3 games. Talked about this yesterday. I would have Baldwin in game 3 since you have Jesus Luzardo on the mound. That would be what I would do, but we'll see if Atlanta wants to give Murphy a day off after playing a full 9 innings, simply to make sure he doesn't overwork himself too soon. But one of the big observations in this one was the rec specs, right? Sean Murphy's wearing sports goggles in the game, both behind the plate and when batting. And credit to David O'Brien of The Athletic, talking to Sean Murphy about it after the game. Murphy was diagnosed with astigmatism over the offseason, and he really struggled in spring training trying to wear contacts. And I get it. I also have astigmatism, and at times I struggle with contacts too. I'm also nearsighted, which is what's unfortunate. So I have to have something corrective all of the time. From what I understand, Sean Murphy's not needing them all the time, but he does have astigmatism. And what it is, long story short, astigmatism is the curvature of your eye it's abnormal. It's irregular, right? And because of that, you can get blurred vision, both sometimes at distance, both or near, depending on where the curvature is messed up. I'm nearsighted. It's near for me. Think of it, instead of the surface of the eye just being like one curve like a ball. It's egg-shaped, right? It's just an odd curvature of the eye. It's fixable, obviously. Contacts, glasses, whatever. But the options would be corrective lenses or surgery. And we remember Eddie Rosario had eye surgery. His was a different situation, right? He had a hole in his... You have to fix that via surgery. Murphy tried contacts in spring training. It wasn't working really well. When he got to Gwinnett, he tried the sport goggles instead, the rec specs, right? And he hit a home run in his first rehab game in Gwinnett. He wore them last night. It seemed to work. Now, we have to figure out, or I guess he has to figure out how it's going to work when it gets hotter, right? It was 50-something degrees at game time, and it dropped into the 40s by the end of the game last night. But when it's hotter, you're breathing under the mask and things like that. Humidity, condensate, is all of that going to be an issue? We'll have to figure that out as we go. But for now, at least, it feels like there's an easily answerable, there's an easy thing to point to when you look and say, hey, Murphy struggled a lot last year. Could he potentially be better this year? You can say he's not dealing with an oblique injury, right? He's not coming off of an injury to a rotational muscle, which for a hitter feels like it's a big deal. And you discovered an eye problem that is now being corrected. So it's very easy to say, hey, Sean Murphy could be significantly better this year than he was last year. Very easy to see that. And then both Baldwin and Murphy will be pinch hit options on days they are not starting. You saw the Braves do this some last year. Travis d'Arnaud, the days he wasn't starting, they frequently used him late in games when they were losing as a pinch hitter and things like that. So you may see that. The Braves didn't pinch hit last night for anybody. I wondered if they would pinch hit for Orlando Arcia in the 8th, but they had a lead, right? You could have seen a situation where Drake Baldwin got the pinch at bat instead of Arcia. It turns out Arcia hits a double and then advances to third on the sacrifice bunt by Michael Harris, playing a little small ball there by the Braves. And we can have conversations about the fact that sacrifice bunts are not a great strategy. It is a large cost to sacrifice an out for one base. It did work out this time. And the Braves as an organization have never been super huge into sacrifice bunts. I want to say they had less than 10 all year last year. And I want to say they're already at 2 this season. So a little bit of a different approach. I do think it makes a lot more sense for a guy like an Arcia or a Kelenic to bunt than it does for a Michael Harris to bunt. He did have a single in the first inning. He had an RBI sac fly. A single in the 5th inning. An RBI sac fly in the 6th. An odd choice of who he's the guy to do a sac bunt. But it did get the run to the 3rd. After Ozzie Albies drew a walk, a wild pitch is what scored Orlando Arcia to push the lead from 6-5 to 7-5, which was the final score. Speaking of Jarred Kelenic, we do need to acknowledge what he did, right? Jarred Kelenic goes 1 for 1. He has one official at-bat in this game because he walked 3 times. He scored 2 runs in this one. The easy joke to make here is that the tablets in the dugout showed the footage of Alex Verdugo hitting the home run in Gwinnett. That's the easy joke to make because Jarred Kelenic, these were some of the best at-bats I've seen from Jarred Kelenic this season. Again, 1 for 1. The only hit he gets is a single to left. But he walks 3 times. He scores twice. He also made a great defensive play in the bottom of the 9th inning. The top of the 9th inning. A great defensive play in right field, a diving catch that kind of kept Philly from getting a rally going. So Jarred Kelenic, really good game. Both Jarred Kelenic and Sean Murphy obviously heard the things that we were saying about them. And they decided they were going to go out on their terms if they ended up going out, right? In just a minute, let's talk about the pitching side of this. Let's also talk about some of the offensive issues that persisted. We'll break both of those down next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby breaking down the win against Philadelphia on Tuesday night before we get into the next start. And we saw a little bit of clutch hitting from the Atlanta Braves. That home run by Murphy in the second inning was with 2 outs, so he picked up 3 2-out RBIs. We saw Austin Riley, when I was doing the postcast for Locked On Sports Atlanta last night, I said the turning point of the game was Riley's double in the 7th inning that scored Marcell Ozuna, who had walked to get on, because that was what kind of made us realize, no, Atlanta's not going to roll over here. Atlanta is going to continue to push this lead. Atlanta is going to win this game. That was the kind of response that you have not gotten from the Atlanta Braves in a while. Like this season, you have not gotten that kind of response from the Braves. Despite that, it's not completely fixed. Like, the offensive issues still persisted. You were 3 for 13 with runners in scoring position in this game. 2 of those 3 hits were Sean Murphy's. You had a runner on second and a runner on first when Murphy hit the home run in the second inning. You had runners on first and second when Murphy hit the RBI single in the 6th. Again, you also had a runner on second base for Riley when he hit that double. Marcell Ozuna was on second base. Outside of those 3, which I know that's not how this works, but just bear with me here. Atlanta, they left 10 on base, and those were the only 3 hits in 13 opportunities with runners in scoring position. So, you don't have to be perfect with runners in scoring position to win a game. You just don't. It's good to see that they can get it done while also acknowledging, I'm not saying the thing, but it's good to see they can get it done while also acknowledging that they could have done more. They could have been even better. For context, Philly was 3 for 9 with runners in scoring position and stranded 7 on base. Also, Kyle Schwarber was a double away from the cycle, which is just wild, right? But let's talk about the starting pitching real quick. And I'm going to get to Chris Sale, right? Or let's talk about the pitching in general, and I'm going to get to Chris Sale. Not a great start for him. We'll get to him in the third segment. I want to talk about him separately. But 4 2/3, 9 hits, 5 runs. At least he had no walks, right? No walks and 5 strikeouts. But in what we expected to be a pitching duel, Zack Wheeler wasn't much better. 5 1/3 innings, 8 hits, 5 runs, 3 walks and 7 strikeouts. Gave up the home run to Wheeler. Sale gave up just an absolute moonshot in the 5th inning to Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Schwarber destroyed a baseball. I've got it here. Hang on. It was rough. 116.7 off the bat. 462 feet. Okay. So it was odd that both starting pitchers who were so good last year didn't have great nights. But what you were able to do, and I talked about this in the preview yesterday, getting into the bullpen. Matt Strahm was charged with the blown save. He went 2/3 of an inning, struck out a guy. Orion Kerkering took the loss, pitched 1 full inning, 1 hit, 1 run, 2 walks, no strikeouts. He's got that deadly sweeper. No strikeouts for Orion Kerkering. And then you also tagged Tanner Banks in the 8th. 2 hits, 1 run, 1 walk. So Atlanta got into the Philly pen, and that's when they were able to get the winning runs. Okay. Flip side of this, the Braves bullpen, after Chris Sale left, and again, 9 hits for Chris Sale. We're getting to Chris Sale in the third segment. After Chris Sale left the game, Philly did not record a hit. Iñigo de los Santos finished up the 5th, came back and pitched the 6th inning. No hits, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. Dylan Lee pitched 2/3 of an inning. No hits, 1 walk. Also, Dylan Lee threw a 97-mile-an-hour fastball. I don't know where that came from. No clue. No idea what happened there. We'll take it. I love it. He was already quietly one of the better pitchers in baseball at getting whiffs. And he was throwing 93. So being able to run up and get 97 is a big deal. It's a welcome development for a guy that has never really had that kind of luck. That was the hardest fastball of Dylan Lee's career. Good to see you have that in there. Daisabel Hernandez finished up that inning and then finished up the 7th. And then despite Aaron Bummer being up, came back for the 8th and had a 1-2-3 inning. Struck out 2 over the course of his 1 1/3 innings. He ended up getting the win. Daisabel Hernandez got the win. And then Raisel Iglesias walked 1 in the 9th, but otherwise secured the save without a lot of drama. Daisabel Hernandez had a really big 8th inning. I mean, that was huge. If you look at the game situation and how things have gone so far in this game for Atlanta, right? They're up by 1. It should be more. Edmundo Sosa, in his first career start in the outfield, robs a home run from Marcell Ozuna, right? It's very easy to see how that could have been, there could have been more runs than what were actually scored. But Daisabel Hernandez comes back out for the 8th. Gets JT Realmuto to ground out. Brandon Marsh comes in as a pinch hitter for Edmundo Sosa. He strikes him out swinging. And then he strikes Bryson Stott out swinging. The thing that I think the biggest weakness of this Braves pen going into the season was the fact that obviously you lost AJ Minter and you weren't going to have Joe Jimenez, who was there, by the way, last night. He was in the bullpen last night. He obviously wasn't going to pitch, but he was in the bullpen, which was good to see. And Daisabel Hernandez was able to step up and take the 8th inning. They didn't go to Pierce Johnson. They didn't go to Aaron Bummer. They went to Daisabel Hernandez. They wanted that velocity, despite Philly being a pretty good team against velocity. And I think some of how Atlanta called pitches for Daisabel Hernandez helped with that. Because what do you think of when Daisabel Hernandez comes in the game? You think of heat, right? Brandon Marsh got 4 straight sliders to start that at-bat. Took a called strike. Took 2 of them below the zone for balls. 1 of them was borderline and probably should have been a strike. Strike zone was atrocious last night. Don't worry about that. Before he got Brandon Marsh to swing under a fastball elevated for the final strike. And then Bryson Stott, just having watched a pinch hitter get 4 straight sliders to open the at-bat, he gets 4 straight fastballs, strikes out. Called strike, swinging strike, a ball above the zone, swinging strike, done. Huge innings for Daisabel Hernandez. Just, if he can solidify that 8th inning role, I think that goes a long way towards answering a lot of the questions that we've had about the bullpen. About who's going to take what inning. I've talked on here before multiple times. I don't really trust Pierce Johnson as your main setup man, simply because he's prone to blow-ups a little more than I'd love. And I'm actually working on a deep dive into leverage situations on these relievers and blow-ups and things like that, and how often all this kind of stuff happens, to try to find some way to quantify this. I'm working on it. It's not ready yet. It'll probably be on the newsletter first, bravetoday.com. Go subscribe to that if you want to. It'll probably be on there before it's on the podcast, but I'm working on that. But being able to say, hey, De Los Santos has been great. Better than we thought he was going to be. Daisabel Hernandez is, at least in this outing, was absolutely clutch. I never once felt like there was any danger here. Realmuto got a hard hit ball on that, but it was a grounder right to short. Right? Nick Castellanos did not get good contact on a slider in the zone when he flew out to end the 7th. He flew out to Michael Harris. Didn't get great contact there. So if Daisabel can lock down the 8th inning like that, it goes a long way towards answering some of the questions we had about the bullpen. But in just a second, we have even more questions about starting pitching, and specifically about Chris Sale. Let's talk about those next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby, final segment here of the Wednesday show, talking about last night's win, but having the conversation about, one, Chris Sale, and two, Braves starting pitching in general here, okay? Because going into the year, we expected the offense to be a strength of the team, just based on the names you had there, right? Yes, they struggled a little bit last year, but based on health and the names, you thought they'd be good. We expected the rotation, despite losing Max Fried and Charlie Morton, we expected them to be a strength of the team just based on how good they were last year. Even a normal amount of regression would still have this as a top 10 rotation in baseball. And then we expected the bullpen to be the weakness. We've seen a little bit of struggles out of the bullpen, right? Hector Neris, 5 runs on 5 hits and 1 complete inning across 2 games. Already DFA'd. He's already gone. Jose Suarez hasn't been bad. Daisy Hernandez, like I said, in this outing was great. Dylan Lee's been really good. Enyel de los Santos has been fantastic. Raisel Iglesias has been Raisel Iglesias. I'm not that worried about the bullpen right now. Pierce Johnson, despite me talking bad about him, hasn't allowed a run yet in 2 2/3 innings. 4 strikeouts, 1 walk, 2 hits, but no runs. So, there you go. But the starting pitching has been disappointing. And when you look at, and I think the conversation we need to have starts with Chris Sale. Okay. This is now 3 starts where he hasn't made it past the 5th inning. 3 runs on 6 hits in 5 innings against the Padres on opening day. 3 runs on 4 hits against the Dodgers. And now 5 runs on 9 hits and 4 2/3 against the Phillies. He's only walked 1 in that entire stretch. He struck out 17 in 14 2/3 innings. But he's also sitting on a 6.75 ERA after 3. And I know that last year, he didn't have the best starts to start the year. His 3rd start of the year was 7 innings against Miami. And it was 5 runs allowed on 6 hits with 3 walks. But there were some really odd trends last night for Chris Sale. Okay. And I normally get frustrated by the velocity conversations, right? When we are concerned or talk about the pitcher's velocity, the starter's velocity fluctuating and things like that, it's a little tedious to me sometimes. But last night, there were some worrisome trends with Chris Sale. It's not his average velocity being down, right? He averaged 92.7 in this game. His average this year is 93.6. So he was down 0.9 of a mile an hour in this start from his first start of the year. He was down 1.3 mile an hour from last year's average velocity. The more worrisome trend for me is he seemed to have some extra in the first, right? I went ahead and looked at the average fastball velocities and the max fastball velocities for each inning. First inning, he averaged 93.9. He touched 97.3. You love that, right? He didn't throw another fastball over 93.7 the rest of the game. He averaged 91 and change in the second inning. His high was 92.7. He averaged 92.1 in the third and touched 93 in the third. And then he really got away from the fastball. In the in the 4th inning, 8 pitch inning, 6 of them were sliders. In the 5th inning, 15 pitches, he only threw 5 fastballs. He was really going heavy on the slider late. Now, Wheeler also struggled. Yes, it was cold, right? So there is an explanation here. But because of how extreme it was with the velocity dropping after the first inning, I at least wanted to mention it. Now, after the game, right, Chris Sale did not appear, he talked to media, he did not appear that concerned about the velocity. He was obviously not happy with his start, but he did not appear that concerned about the velocity. And I'll point out, too, that if there is some sort of injury concern with the player, they don't meet with the media afterwards. Spencer Strider, the home opener last year against the Diamondbacks, he didn't come meet with the media afterwards because they were examining for a possible elbow injury. And it turns out there was one. If those players are usually in the interview room, win or lose, that starter is. Max Fried came out there the very next day after that terrible start against Arizona. And Sale wasn't happy last night. Like, he wasn't happy with his performance. He's glad the team won. So I don't know if this is something serious, but I wanted to make sure I mentioned it. But I think the bigger issue here, overall, is outside of Spencer Schwellenbach, nobody's really been able to give you any sort of length in their starts. These are all small sample sizes, and that's the problem with this. But what was absolutely a strength of the team last year has so far not been a strength this year. And with Ronaldo Lopez already out, you're in a situation where until Strider's back, which he makes a rehab start tomorrow, until Strider's back, it's Spencer Schwellenbach and Chris Sale. You need those two guys to carry the rotation. And Schwellenbach's, knock on wood, he's doing his part. Chris Sale is not. And everybody else, and granted, these are all small sample sizes, but everybody else is so far not going deep into their games. Grant Holmes' start against the Dodgers. 4 innings, 4 runs on 4 hits with 4 walks and 3 strikeouts. Bryce Elder's start against LA. 4 innings, 3 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. They combined for 3 home runs. 2 of those were from Elder. Although I believe, if I remember right, they were both solo shots, which absolutely helps there. AJ Smith-Shawver has now made 2 starts. 4 innings, 4 2/3 innings. As much as we have been getting on the offense and the veterans, that they have to be better. Your Matt Olson, your Austin Riley, your Marcell Ozuna, your Ozzie Albies. The exact same applies to Chris Sale. Chris Sale has to be better. If Chris Sale, he doesn't have to be the Cy Young winner again. But Chris Sale needs to be closer to that than to 2023 Chris Sale. And so far, across 3 starts, he hasn't done that. And it's entirely possible that he fixes this. I am not concerned at all about it's too late, write him off, he's done, right? He has plenty of time to fix this. Again, one of his first 3 starts last year was also not a good start. But it has to start getting better soon. Because as we're seeing with this team overall, the margin for error is slimmer than we thought it was going to be. The offense, again, had a couple hits with runners in scoring position yesterday. But outside of the 2 for Sean Murphy and the 1 for Matt Olson, the 1 for Austin Riley, none of the other core part of the order hitters had one. And when you take out last Friday against the Marlins, they've been pretty bad all season in that situation. Just like they have to be better, your studs in your rotation, specifically Chris Sale, has to be better. This is now 3 starts. And there's mitigating factors here. It was cold. It's a tough opponent. The strike zone was atrocious. That was an awful strike zone. I'm excited to see the umpire scorecard this morning just so we can quantify how bad. And shout out to CJ Nikowski on the broadcast before the game started, pointing out to us that this zone was frustratingly different and smaller for lefties than it was for righties. And we saw some of that with Sale. We also saw, Ozzie Albies got rung up on a terrible strike call. We saw Sale get mad on the mound about an inside pitch that absolutely was a strike that was not called. So there's mitigating factors here in this one. But still, We absolutely have to get better performances out of this rotation if we want the Atlanta Braves to climb out of this hole and catch up to not the Phillies. The Mets are in first place. The Mets are 8-3. The Phillies are 7-3. So Atlanta knocked Philly out of first place. The Braves are 5.5 games back of the Mets and 5 games back of the Phillies. Tonight's matchup, again, Grant Holmes, Taijuan Walker. If you want more about that, we wrote about it on Braves Today. And yesterday's podcast goes into detail on that pitching matchup, what to expect from Taijuan Walker on the mound based on what he did last year and the one start so far we've seen, his scoreless outing against the Colorado Rockies. This has been Braves Today for Wednesday, April 9th. If you're listening on audio, do me a favor, leave a 5-star review. Some kind words would be great. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when I drop the next episode, or maybe even a special bonus episode like we did on Monday. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.